Yeah, okay. The last couple of sessions, right? What we have learned or gathered knowledge is mostly on installation of Python and where it fits, and some advantages of Python, utility development on where Python plays a major role when compared to the market tools which are expensive in terms of licenses. And day two we learned on string methods. Like Venkatesh also covered majority of it, and also the difference between the method and the function and why we call it string methods, not string functions, which I explained it in detail. And also we have covered the data types, right? So what actually is there in the Python data types, the numeric sequence type, and a gist of what it is. So today we will learn about it's mostly heart of the data types, it's a list. So any interview you take up in Python, none of the interviews mostly doesn't end without asking a question on list and a tuple. Any FAQs you go through, right? It basically highlights on list and tuples, couple of data types that we have. So list mostly it's a data structure. So Python data type, which is changeable or mutable. So mutable is the word which you would hear anywhere in the FAQs or anywhere you Google about list or tuples. Mutable is nothing but any variable or any data type that is defined and can be edited. So this list, which whenever I define a list, right, like say last time we saw like defined a string, right, in the double quotes or single quotes, it doesn't matter. We also saw slicing, like the the arguments, right, start, stop, and the step part is optional, and also stop part is optional. So in coming to the list, so any you can define a list, and you can always list is mutable, meaning you can add elements to it, remove elements to it, or modify elements within the list. When we say element, so like say this my so I popped up my terminal. So let's say this is my list. So how do we define list is, list definition is within the square brackets. So this is how I define a list. Like say this is the one, right? So what is it? It's not there. I want to know the type of this variable. So what is my variable here? It's the list one. See, it's saying it's list. And also whenever whatever list or string or any type, any data type that you're operating in Python, you can always get the length of it unless it throws an index. So length of the list is 0 because I do not have any element in the list. Elements as in I did not put in any values, right? Whether it's a string or an integer or a list or within a list, nothing is there. So I have defined a list. So wherever I use list within my program, it will always be considered as a data type list, the list one, which is the variable, consider it as a variable, right? So it is the type list. So whenever you're defining something or you're in between of a program, right, you must be working around like multiple Python modules. So you're unsure of the data type, you can always just pull up and the type, so which will give the type of the data type of the variable. Basically it's a class list, and the length is 0 here. So this is the basic definition of a list. And as I was saying, heart of the data types, most of the programs that I worked on so far, all these years, right, there is always something which we create as a list. So we will learn more, but yeah, consider it that way. And this is just a summary of list, right? And for your entry questions, you can always say, what is mutable? People might ask. It says like you can edit it, you can delete it, or you can update it. So that features are nothing but called mutability. They can be mutable and they're changeable. And all, as always, as a data structure, it's always indexed, right? Index, where does the index starts from? It's 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. So it allows duplicates. So these are the critical parts you need to say. Let's say my list, right? I just defined a list. I will again do it, like say 1, 2, 3. Again I want to do 1 and comma 4 comma 5. Okay, if you see here, so first thing to observe is it accepted duplicates. It didn't throw me an error and any error. So it does accept duplicates. So what doesn't accept duplicate is set. So which we'll learn later, but just keep a note of it. So by the definition, what we need to remember is list is defined within the square brackets, and list accepts duplicates, And list is mutable, as in you can once a list is defined, you can edit it, delete it, update it, you can play around with it. And the other thing is list is indexed. So what is indexed? And also we've seen, so this list is a combination of integers and string. It doesn't matter if you define a list, is if you're starting the list with integers, it need not be like all integers should be in the within the list. It could be a mix of any data type, any Python data type within the list. And also there can be a list of multiple lists as well, which we cover at the end of the session today, tomorrow. So this is the highlight you need to, everyone has to remember in mind. Okay, so list slicing, right? So what I was saying is this guy, we know the slicing, right? Index. So list of three didn't do anything. My list is list one of three. It is gonna return the third. Yeah, this is my list, right? Yeah, 0, 1, 2, third element. 0, 1, 2, 3, third element. I have repeated one, right? So it gave me one. So, and continuing with the list methods, right? This is with the list and list methods. There are a bunch of methods. These two slides, if you see, all these are list methods, and majority of it you would use it. And one clarity we need is there are few methods like say append and extend. By the naming, you would hear it as the same, right? So appending is what you're adding something to the existing data. That's what we call append. And also what is extend? Whatever is defined, you're trying to increase it. That's what extend. So, but still there are two different methods and they operates in a different way. So we will cover with it with examples. So copy and clear, append, these are the multiple methods. These are confusing methods which could be your interview questions as well. So what is the necessity of extending a list or appending a list? Or what is the need of pop? Pop is always an interesting one. So what does pop do or remove do? Or what is the, again, append, extend and insert? So these three does the similar function, but what is the difference? I'll go with the examples. I don't want to spend much time on the theory here. And there are few other functions, methods, list methods, sorry. Again, delete. So what does delete do? Reversing. So usually, right, some the other programming or long back, people used to ask you to write a function to reverse a list. But when you get into a project, you're running real-time activity, you don't need to function all those, right? You don't need to create the function definitions for reversing a list. It's already a built-in method. You don't need to spend much time. Just a single line statement, single word, just dot operator and then reverse. It will reverses the list like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It will immediately reverse to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And also there is sorting. So how do we want to sort a list? Is it by the length of the list? So that all will see it. And operators, it's like simple concatenation, right? So like say, what is my list one here? So my list one is this. Get rid of this. It's not one. Okay, so concatenation, like say first value is, I'm just concatenating, right? So what is my list one of 0? What is the first value? Okay, so I'll explain that error, right? So I was thinking something in my mind and I gave it something. So this good to learn. So what I tried to concatenate is this is a string, right? I'm trying to concatenate this string with the first element of the list. So like say suppose I don't know what is the type of the element, right? The first element, because this list is a combination of integers and strings. So what error it threw in the first time when I was trying, it says can only concatenate string, not int. So what is the int part here? This is the string. Just concatenation is I'm just using the plus addition operator and then I'm giving a list one of 0. But what is actually in the list one of 0 is 1, which is it not in quotes, right? So it is considering it as what? An integer. So the basic fundamental thing, okay, we cannot concatenate, right? It has to be same data type. So here it is int. So it is throwing me a type error. So to overcome it, what should I do? I do a cast. So whatever is the value in this is the one and the another beauty of Python are simple, right? So whatever is the value that is coming in, it tries to convert that to a string. So the string of does is it is converting this particular one value, which is a numerical without quotes, to something called within the quotes for this print statement to process. So here what we have seen is concatenation, simple concatenation, right? A dynamic concatenation. I'm not doing anything. So I'm not saving. So ideally what we might be doing is, let's say, the same thing, right? Okay. Will it give me an error? No. So what is B? Okay, yeah. So same thing. So I'm not kind of instance defining a new variable. I'm not saving anything, right? So this is called dynamic, right? I'm just issuing the print statement and I'm getting the value what I need, and then I'm kind of saving memory here. If you see, it's a basic example, but what I did in this two is I'm not saving it in a variable, meaning I'm saving memory. And then here I'm directly operating on the list. I'm doing a concatenation and I'm passing that value. So this is just print statement you're seeing here, right? So in your programming, in the programs that you're gonna write in future or right now, so you have to operate on some values. You not store it in another variable. So Python way, right? So always try to limit your code, kind of limit the number of lines that you write and also redundant lines, number of lines that you write. So those and all you need to avoid. So they call it the Python way, right? And also try to all anywhere you go. So always try to minimize the variables that you define so that you are saving memory and your program runs fast. Everything it adds value to your coding style also. So that is something with the concatenation and the casting. So I'm try to change into string, and we have few other things. Let's jump on to the other ones, right? So copy, what actually copy does. So what is my list here? List one. Okay. So somewhere you're working, right? So I'll give you a practical example. Like say you're working with a bigger table. The last example I gave, right? You're working with a table, so which has like some 10,000 by 10, meaning 10,000 rows by 10 columns, something like that. So you want to operate on one particular column. You already saved the data. Imagine, we'll all cover it in the later, but just imagine you have a bigger table which has 10,000 rows and 10 columns. So suppose you have extracted 10 by 10, like say you've extracted the column 1, first 10 rows of that column 1. Say suppose like that, and you want to operate on it. So how do you do it? You need to copy that part to somewhere else, right? You don't want to disturb the actual table that you read already, which is in memory. So something like I need to copy it to list 2 so that I can operate on it, right? Like say this is the list 2, and what is my list which is already there, dot copy. So now list 1 is intact, my list 2 is same. So it's a simple copy function. It copies exactly how the list is already defined. So when do you need to use? If you want to just don't disturb the existing list or existing set of data, you have to apply some business functions or manipulations on it. So now you can play around with list 2, you can do everything, and list 1 stays intact. This is a simple function called copy. And okay, I've copied something to the list too, but I don't want the list to be with this. I've operated already. I just want to release list 2, but the list 2 will still be a list, but just want to remove all the elements within it. So what I can do is my list is what? List 2 dot clear. So if we say what is the next method that we have, it's clear. So now let's go back to list 1. I still have the elements in it. List 2 is empty. So length of list 2 will be what? 0. So list, this variable is still a list. I've just cleared the list. So instead of deleting everything, right? Deleting all the elements and all, you could just clear the list, empty the list. Truncating, right? Basically, we're not deleting it, we're just truncating it. So that is one with the clear. It's simple. If you see the operator, it's like you're starting with list dot copy. And here what it did, list dot copy, it didn't, we are catching the return value. Okay. Why are we giving list 2, right? So list 1 dot copy, it returns the set of the list elements and where you need to catch it, right? This is the return. The return value of this method is the return. There is a return value for this particular method, copy method. So where we are catching it to list 2. This is one way. And one is clear and one is append. So what is my list 1? Okay. So I want to add some value to it. I say like consider 1, 2, 3, 1, 4, 5. I just want to add an element 6 to it. So append of, let's say 6. So I did not specify the element index, right? So what it did by default, appending means we are appending, as in there is some existing data, you add to the tail part of it. So that's what append does. Okay, so here what we did, we just added an element to it, and now the list length is increased by 1, and the last element is 6. So you need not worry about, okay, you have to just append an element. Usually we might worry about, okay, what is the length of the list? Do I need to, I need to add it by the length plus 1, right? We need not worry about all that stuff at this part. It just appends the list. And the next part is what we have seen is extend, right? There is a quite difference and similarities in between limit, append and extend. Let's see what it is. By definition, what it says, it extends a list by given list. Let's see. My list 1 is this. So let me try to append something. So first I want to do like say 7. Okay. So think through what happens here. Is it X? Is it expected to throw him an error? Because by definition, we are saying it has to be a list. But what I'm trying to pass here is I'm trying to pass a string here. This is a string, right? Let's see what happens. So there is no return value to it, right? Okay, see the difference. So here, when I executed this statement, it didn't return me anything. Usually if there is a return value, it usually prints here. So here it doesn't have a return type. It is modifying the existing list. So what it's doing, it is using list 1. It is appending, as in it is modifying the list, but it's not returning anything after it completes its function. If I want to see list 1, it says list 1 like this. So 7, right? Here we added 6, here we added 7. Let's see how extend works here. I'll just, if you see here, the basic difference, right? Append, what it did, whatever the string that we gave, it added it as an element here. But by definition, what extend is doing, extends a list by given list. But I did not pass it a list, right? I passed a string, but still it did not throw me any error, right? There was no error. But what it did, it considered this as a list, considering E as one element of the list, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. This should be an interesting question in any of the interviews or in the written type tests, right? So what is the expected value for this? So usually there could be a multiple choice stating, okay, it adds 8 to it, or it throws a syntax error stating the extent cannot work with a string, it has to be a list. So you don't have, so this try to remember this part. It's pretty important. What is the difference between extend and append? It doesn't throw an error, any error, even if you're not passing a list. But what it does is it just adds each element of it. So let's see again. what is my list? Let's use it as list1 dot. Let me define a new list otherwise. So 9, 10, 11. So what is my L2 is this. So proper way is to list1 dot extend of, let's give me L2. So again, there is no return type. If you see here, it properly extended the list. So what is the existing list is this part, right? This is my existing list. So then what it did at the end, it added each element of this list as one of the elements to the new list, which is the existing list one. If you see, it went to 9, 10, 11. So that is what it understood. So, okay, I didn't pass a list, but it didn't throw me an error. It considered it as it thought it's a list. So what it did, it split each of the elements of it and it added. So here it properly added as required. So this is important. Even when you're writing, right, when you're coding, you might get confused. So when to use append, when to use extend. Append is just to add a single element at the end of the list. Extend is to add a list already, a list to a existing list. So which is easy, right? If you're like the earlier example, what I was saying is, okay, you have 10,000 rows by 10 columns and you're trying to get just the column one top 10 rows and you want to add the 11th row to 20th row as well. So you have it as separate variable. You could just combine everything. Anywhere you could do it. And count is nothing but it just gives the number of times the count is there. So it's let's say this is my list, right? It just gives, so if you want to get the number of occurrences within a number of occurrences of a value within the list. So one is repeated like two times, right? That's why your count is two. Sometimes it could be like, okay, you're operating on a data table, right? Pandas data table where there are some none values, meaning some blank values within the uh, within within the table. And you're trying to find out, okay, somebody, there is something called New Jersey, right? You're trying to identify, like say for example, okay, how many people live in New Jersey? So the city is already saved in one of the column. Instead of just like your count of equal to, right, your data, your SQL statement. So simply what you could do here is if it's saved in a list, you could just get the count of the New Jersey. So then you can easily find out, okay, within the given table, I have 10 people living in the New Jersey. Or so that, okay, for so it's again a common example I'm stating, but similarly, what happens in your real-time programming? Okay, it extends further. Okay, so some people, like say you're working for an insurance project. So there will be insurance is like, it differ by the states, right? Everywhere. uh, like okay, New Jersey has a different thing and New York has a different thing, California has a different thing. These are all various states within US. So what happens if within that, okay, if that particular member is part of this state, it there is a different slab to it. Their insurance costs, premium, copay, everything will change, right? So this is how you can take it further. So the examples that I'm giving is, okay, you would think, okay, this is simple, so what would I do with the count? No, it's not like that. So okay, New Jersey, how many people are living? So accordingly, okay, this will be the cap for the number of people that live, that we have to give for New Jersey. What is the copay for it? How many people? Okay, and again the same, right? How many people are under the age 60 or 30, something like that. You could always take it to the next level, the examples whatever I give. That is one thing. And okay, I'll go to the chat. I guess somebody is pinging, but I'll go to the chat and then and maybe at the end of the session or the next session I'll try to clear it. These are the ones. And also pop, right? Pop is nothing but it's popping. It kind of deletes the element. So what it does, it kind of deletes the element. So what is my list? Again, let's continue with the list only. Okay, what is the length of the list? 16. So let's see pop. This is the method. So what there is a return type. If you see, what is the return value? It's 11. It's neither the length of the, it's not the length of the list. So length is 16. So what is the last element? If you see here, it is 11. 11th is the last element. So what it did, let's, before printing the list, understand this. I just gave pop, which is popping, deleting. So it gave me a return value 11. So let me print the list. If you see, it operate on the list, it deleted the last element of the list. It again gave it as the return type. Your list one is now modified and the length will be 15. So, okay, I just want to delete the last element. So ideally what you do, usually you get the length of the list and then delete the last element by the index. You don't need to do that. Just give pop. And the other part is, okay, I don't want to delete the last element. I want to delete the second index element. Like say, we could always do that as well. Like say, pop out, let's say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fifth index. So just to avoid the confusion, I just gave the fifth index. So it deleted the popped the element 5, fifth element, which is 5. So now my list is without 5 and 11. I already removed 11. So it's optional arguments, right? So if you're not giving it, by default, it considers something. What does the pop does? There are all the functions or methods usually will have some optional argument anywhere you go. If you're not, if the user is not passing anything to it, meaning it considers. So here with respect to pop, it always removes the last element. If you're giving the index, it tries to delete that element. Let's see. I just gave 50. I don't know the length of the list. Consider I don't know the length of the list. So index out of range error. So people might ask you, right, what is, when do you get an index out of range error? Usually when you're trying to access an element which doesn't exist, and also accessing is nothing but you're reading it or deleting it or anything, right? Access, you're trying to access something which doesn't exist. So that's when we get the index error, meaning there is no element, 50th element for the list, particular list one. That's when we get the index errors. So that is with it, right? So far what we did, we try to delete an element by giving the index. So far, if I don't know the index, what I did, I just delete the last element of it. So I've added something, I just appended something, I removed it. So what if I want to look for an element with a value? I want to look up by a value and delete the occurrence of it, right? Like say, what is my list one? So I want to remove something. I don't know the index of it, right? We can't always find the index of it. Like say remove of one, what it does. Okay, I just gave one, right? Consider I presume there is a string, one of the elements. Again, everything is an elements, right? All these are elements of the list. That's why we are calling it as elements. Okay, I tried to delete something. Whether what it did, it tried to looks up, okay, whether the one is already there, a string is there. No, it's not there. So what it gave me, sometimes some of the functions or methods, they just remain blank. If you are if you have tried working on Linux, right? Usually if you execute a statement, sometimes it gives like, okay, the file doesn't exist. Sometimes it just gives nothing. The cursor goes to the next line of execution. So it means it executed or it doesn't execute, we don't know. But here, if you see for remove, it does give an return statement. Basically, it's an error, not a written statement. It's giving an error if it's not there in the list. Let's try to remove an element which exists in the list. Like say E. It removed the E. And then let's say 1. Okay. So why I tried to remove one int, right? So there are multiple ones, right? There are two occurrences of ones within this list. So what it did, it removed the first occurrence. That's how remove works. So you can specify any data type, like say if it's a string or an int. If there are multiple occurrences of that particular value in the list, it removes the first element. And let's see if I can remove multiple elements, right? Say I want to remove 1, 2. Meaning if there is 1 deleted, if there is sec2 value within the list deleted. So what it gave me, takes exactly 1 argument 2 given. This is a standard type error. You'll see multiple times, and majority of the times when you're calling user defined functions or built-in functions or anything. So try to understand the error. It says list.remove takes exactly 1 argument 2 given. So meaning, so arguments are nothing but the values here, right? Within the parenthesis. So what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to do 2 positional arguments here. There is 1, there is 2. So, but the remove, how it was defined is, it can accept only one value within it. It has to be either anything, right? It just has to be 1, 2, or 12 or anything. It cannot operate on it. So this is one. And also there is a function, user defined function. So what it does is it operates like, say, again, we'll go back to our example, right? So wherein, okay. So what we're trying to read is, there is a function to read a file, right? So my read function, what it does is I need to give the path of it. So first one is the path and the file name. Okay, there are 3 things we could do. So this is the function I developed. Like, say I defined a function read, file read. I know there are different functions to read, right? Already built-in functions, but consider it this way. I have defined this function. So if you're trying to import my program and try to call the file read, so if I do not, so here it's our mandatory fields. This is what the error is, right? So here, like, consider remove. It's what remove operates is, it just takes an element here. Like, say it could be anything. It could be considered as element. They might have defined it like anything, right? Whoever defined it. So remove value. So this value could be any data type. So I'm not defining it here, right? If value is within, it will delete it. So this is what is expected. So what we are trying to give. So the way we are calling this is, forget about all this. How we are calling it is 1, 2, meaning you're passing value 1, value 2. So that is the error it is trying to say. Exactly 1 argument, we are sending 2 arguments. Okay, and let's see. Okay, this is my requirement, right? Remove 1, 2. Let's take it the next level. And how do I achieve it? So what is my list one? Okay, and let me define another list. It will override if I have a list already. So, okay, what is my list two now? Okay, two. So these are the values that I want, that I'm interested to remove within the list one, right? So how do we do it? We can define a loop, right? I will again explain my looping concept and everything if you're completely new to it. And also it's good to write it in a script, basically a Python module, and then execute it. But I wanted to show how it is. And we can cover indentation also. Okay, so what I was trying to do is, my list 2 has some values, my list 1 has values. I wanted to delete one value, one element if it exists, and 2 in it. So how do we iterate? For loop we know, right? We just iterate through some things which is already present. So for looping in Python goes this way. You go for, like, say, element, or simply just to avoid this one, like, say, always we say what? X, right? X in. So I have 2 lists here, right? So what I want to do, I need to find each element in the list and find it out If it exists in the list one, delete it. And again, iterate it, again, repeat the same process. That's what we manually do, right? So whenever we're thinking of loops or programming, it's nothing but simply how we put it is, think of it like, okay, you're doing it manually. And then how do you manually do it? Okay, you pick up first one and you look for it, you delete it. You pick up second one, you look for it, you delete it. So forth, the length of the list. Here the length is only 2. So I'm not bothered about the length in Python here. And so what is my iterable here? List 2, because I wanted to get one element and look up in the list 1. So I just define here list 2 and give a colon. So hit enter, it's not going to execute anything. It is still executing. Python indentation is the basic. That's how it understands if it's a loop or any conditional statement or anything, right? Or class definition or anything. So that's how Python works. So my indentation is 4 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4. Within the for loop, if I want to write any statements, it has to be followed by 4 spaces, meaning whatever the lines that follow here, so forth is part of this for loop. So what it is, okay, again I'll repeat it. So x in list 2, meaning it tries to get all the elements in it. So here how simple it is, look at it. I'm not finding the length of the list, I'm not iterating through the length of the list. All I'm giving to Python is I'm giving the direct list. So within it, Python itself will understand, okay, this is a list, it's iterable. I have to pass iterable meaning which can be iterated until the length exhausts. So that's how it is. So x is nothing but the element. We'll see what x is. So let's say print of x. I want to understand what x is, and then enter. And then again, I want the next statement to be within the for loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, exactly under the p, right? So what is your conditional statements we might have heard, right? If else, meaning if so and so does do this. If else, as in if condition statement fails, else check for it and do this. And there is also multiple, right, nested else if else statements. If you say if a is a, do this. If the element is b, else if element is b, do this. And the finally there will be something called x. If not everything else fails, do this. We'll again learn, but just to keep it interesting, and I don't want to just get it a get it board class, right? Just defining methods. That's why I brought in list for loops here. So I'll again explain each statement. So for I'm iterating list, there is something called x in it, which is we'll see once it prints. And then what it does, and then what I need to do is I have one element in it and I have to look up if that element exists here, right? So how do I do it? I cannot just run the why, because I cannot just run remove. So what happened in remove, if you observe, if the element doesn't exist, it threw me an error, right? If you see here, I don't know whether this one exists or not. It's my list 2 is blind to me. So if I'm trying to delete an element which doesn't exist in the list, it threw me an error. What error? Value error. List x not in the list. So I need to find out first whether it exists and then issue the remove method to it. So similarly, what it is, if what is my element here? X. Consider x as 1. If x in simple in operator, what is my list? My first list is list 1. Always give the columns here. So what I'm trying to do, I'm trying x, which is 1. Imagine it's 1 and I'm printing 1. And what I'm doing in the if condition statement, if 1 in list, meaning instead I'm just doing a search within the list 1, find out if 1 is there. If 1 is there, what I have to do, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. If I type my statement here, it might throw me an error, but what happens is, irrespective of this statement, this line is gonna execute. But if I want to put in the following statement, only if this statement is true. See again, okay, I'm not giving anything is true here, right? So I don't need to give. I just gave if x in list 1. So if x is present in list 1, it's gonna pass. else it doesn't do anything. I need not give true blah blah blah. I'm not comparing anything. I'm using in operator here. So what I have to do, if the following statement uh, has to be falling within the if statement, if loop, it's not loop, right? It's condition statement. So 1 2 3 4. So what I need to do is, let's go up. So what we did, list one dot remove, right? That is the exact accurate statement. List one dot remove of element. So we'll do the same one. List one dot remove of what is our element here? X, right? I'm iterating. So X is my element. Like say this and try to see, enter, and let's see if it doesn't throw me an error. Okay. It gave me two values. I'll come to it. First, let's see what is the list one here. And then what is my list two here? Okay. List two is intact because I did not play with list two, right? It was 1 2, we see 1 2. But list one changed a bit. If you see list one earlier, it had 2 3 1 4 6 blah blah blah, and now it is 3 4 6 blah blah blah. Okay, so what happened? And okay, why it printed 1 2? Because I'm printing the elements. So as to understand and explain, I'm printing the elements. If I hadn't written this statement or commented this statement, it would give me nothing here because I'm not doing anything. I'm just operating on the list. And then once I print list one, it will print me this. Okay, let's go back to it and I'll explain again. This is a very important part. Basically, if you're covering this, you're covering multiple concepts here. We're covering in operator, we're covering basics of the for loop, and also we're covering the if conditional statement. I'll just repeat one last time. So our requirement is to iterate through something and each element find it in the given list and delete it. So we know a method remove which doesn't accept two elements, it just accepts one element. So consider I have to list through multiple things, right? Like so this list is like some 30 values or 40 values. I don't know. And this list one is of some 10,000 values. So I can't just do list one dot remove of one, remove of two, remove of X, blah, blah, blah. So that's when we need looping technique. So how does the loop syntax works here? For element, it could be X. So you need not always put in X here, right? You can say value. You could say anything. You can define X as anything. It is just a variable or iterable, right? You could give anything here. X, it need not always be X. It could be element of X. It could be you define it. It could be Sam. It could be India. It could be USA. Anything. X is anything. You try it. Just follow the similar syntax. You try it. Unless you're using the keywords, it will accept anything. So and again, what is the indentation? 4 spaces. So that's when it reads it as okay. If whatever is in the loop, you execute the statement one here, statement two here, and this particular statement will not be executed always in this for loop. It execute, if you imagine, right, one is there, two is there, and if something else I would have given, it would have ended up in error. So if to avoid such errors, what we I just gave a gist of that point, right? Exceptions. You need to always better style of better way of coding is always to handle the exceptions. So that we'll cover later. With the same example, I'll try to cover it. So what we would do later is the list two will give some other values. We'll append the list by 3 4, which doesn't 3 4 5 6, which 5 doesn't exist. So ideally, by the definition, if the element doesn't exist, a remove is gonna throw as an error. So what kind of error it's giving? It's giving a value error. So better coding would be to handle this. Okay. Always, right? This is a happy path, right? So I've defined list two as 1 2. I know 1 2 elements exist in the list, but what if it's dynamic? It's always dynamic in real time. You don't know what gonna be the values of list two and what gonna be the values of the list one or anywhere. So how do I do? My coding style should be, my code should always work as in, working is not always like deleting element or adding element or something. Irrespective of the outcome, my code shouldn't error out. So ideally, if I had put list 2, it would fail here, right? Immediately it would fail here. So you tried after this meeting sometime, right? You tried out. It is going to fail. Because why it's going to fail? It's going to give this error, value error. So how we need to handle it? We can use try exception handling. So what happens is, if whenever there is an error, theory, right? And be imaginative. So whenever there is something, so consider list 2 is 1 to 100. So when this is iterating for the third time, my x is 100. So it will print 100, and this is already handling it, right? Yeah, I already handled it in the statement itself. So if we remove this statement, and if we put list 4 spaces backward, then it's gonna fail when list 2 is has the third element 100. You try it yourself. What I'm trying to do is, so instead of simply, I just handled it here simply by the if statement. I didn't do a try except finally. I didn't handle it. Other way, I handled it by just giving the statement here. Meaning, if the value doesn't exist in list 1, it's not going to go in here, right? So it's not going to execute this part. So it always executes in a smoother way. It's not going to error out anytime. So that is one way. Other way we will try later is to do it in the exception handling. So this is important. I can send it in the chat later. So Kola, can we continue for some 10-15 minutes, or we end and resume it later?
I think we should be good for today because it's already late.
Okay.
But anyway, we are not closing it. Anyway, tomorrow we can continue.
Sure. Yeah, tomorrow I'll continue the rest methods that we have, and also tuples is another important data type that we have to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tuple is immutable. As in contrast to list, tuples, once you define the tuple, you can't edit it. It's considered as freeze. That's it.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe to KKR Gen AI Innovations channel.